This diagram looks complicated, right? 8 muscles, 3 steps, and somehow one wrong answer. What if I told you you never need to memorize any of this? In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to go from 8 muscles to one culprit visually every single time. This is Park's 3-step test explained the way it should have been taught. So let's begin. First, we'll talk about the 8 cyclovertical muscles and their roles. Then we'll go through the 3 steps of the Park-Bielschowsky test. Which eye is higher, that is hypertropia, which gaze makes it worse, and which head tilt makes it worse. These are the 3 steps respectively. We'll also discuss a few mnemonics that may be helpful, especially for MCQ-based examinations. We'll work through clinical cases, and towards the end, we'll take up about 5 to 6 MCQ-style questions for you to solve quickly. Finally, we'll discuss common pitfalls and how to avoid them. So what are cyclovertical muscles? Cyclovertical muscles are muscles that are involved not only in the vertical movements of the eye, but also have a cyclotorsional action. That means they can also cause a torsional movement, either in torsion or extorsion. In total, we have 8 cyclovertical muscles, 4 in each eye: superior rectus, inferior rectus, superior oblique, and inferior oblique of each eye. Let's discuss their roles. We have the elevators. The muscles that elevate the eye are the superior rectus and the inferior oblique. Before we go ahead, just remember this important rule. Recti work best in abduction and obliques work best in adduction. So, superior rectus elevates in abduction and inferior oblique elevates in adduction. Then we have depressors. The depressors are inferior rectus and superior oblique. Again, rectus muscles act in abduction, oblique muscles act in adduction, and therefore the inferior rectus will cause depression in abduction and superior oblique causes depression in adduction. Then we have the torsional actions. Intorsion means rolling the eye inwards, and the superiors are the intorters. Here we have superior rectus and the superior oblique. Then we have extorsion, that is rolling the eye outwards, and the inferiors are extorters. We have the inferior rectus and the inferior oblique. Now we are going to talk about the Park's 3-step test, also known as the Park's-Bielschowsky test. Whenever a patient presents with vertical deviation, either a hypertropia or a hypotropia, this test helps us identify which cyclovertical muscle is at fault, or in other words, which muscle is the culprit. This cyclovertical muscle diagram showing an eye in hypertropia with all the 8 muscles labeled is something I strongly recommend you to draw in your notebooks and to memorize. This diagram is going to be your baseline for solving any problem related to the Park 3-step test. If you know this diagram well, solving the questions will become extremely easy and very fast. One more important point I want you to remember is the designation. We always refer to the eye that is higher. For example, if the right eye is higher, we write it as R/or R/L. That means the right eye is hypertropic compared to the left. Now, usually when one eye is hypertropic, the other eye will be relatively hypotropic. And why does this happen? This happens because of the Hering's law. If the right eye is hypertropic, it means the depressors of the right eye are weak, or in other words, there is a depressor palsy. At this stage, we don't yet know which depressor is involved, just that a depressor is weak. To overcome this paresis or weakness of the depressors of the right eye, the brain increases innervation to the depressors of the right eye, and because of the Hering's law, the yoke muscles in the opposite eye will also receive the same amount of innervation. As a result, the depressors of the left eye, which are normal, also receive extra innervation, and this causes the left eye to move downwards, leading to hypotropia. So yes, the left eye becomes hypotropic, that is downwards. Alright, now let's actually solve the Park 3-step test. As the name suggests, it has 3 steps. So step number 1, which eye is higher? Always start by identifying the hypertropic eye. In exams, this may be given as a diagram, a clinical photograph, or a notation like R/L or R/L or L/R. In this example, it is clear that the right eye is higher. Once you identify the hypertropic eye, you circle the bottom muscles of the higher eye and circle the top muscles of the lower eye. By bottom and top, I mean this with reference to the cyclovertical diagram. I hope you have drawn it in your notebooks. So let's do that together. Since the right eye is higher, the problem is likely with the depressors of the right eye. That's why we circle the bottom muscles. The depressors of the right eye are the right superior oblique and the right inferior rectus. Now for the left eye, which is relatively hypertropic, the issue could be with the elevators. At this point, we still don't know whether the primary problem is in the hypertropic eye or in the hypotropic eye. So we must consider both the possibilities. Therefore, we also circle the top muscles of the left eye, which are the left superior rectus and the left inferior oblique. So to summarize, in step 1, the right eye is higher, so we have circled the depressors, right superior oblique and right inferior rectus. And for the left eye, which is lower, we have circled the elevators, that is the left superior rectus and the left inferior oblique. So initially we started with 8 cyclovertical muscles. After step 1, we have narrowed it down from 8 to 4. Alright, so the next step is to find out which gaze makes the hypertropia worse. Usually this information will already be given to you in the question. So in step 2, the task is simple. Identify in which gaze the hypertropia increases. Now here's the rule you need to remember. You always circle the muscles on the same side as the worse gaze direction. Again, keep your cyclovertical diagram in front of you. If the hypertropia becomes worse in the left gaze, you circle the muscles that act in the left gaze for both eyes. If it becomes worse in the right gaze, you again circle the muscles that act in the right gaze for both eyes. Let's take an example. Suppose there is right eye hypertropia and it becomes worse in the left gaze. So what do we do next? We go back to our cyclovertical diagram from step 1. Remember, we had already narrowed it down to 4 muscles: right superior oblique, right inferior rectus, left superior rectus, and left inferior oblique. So from these 4 muscles, we now want to narrow it down to 2. Let's see how. First, ask yourself which muscles act in the left gaze. In the left eye, which is abducted, the vertical movers are the superior rectus and the inferior rectus. So we circle these muscles. In the right eye, which is adducted, the vertical movers are the inferior oblique and the superior oblique. So we circle these as well. Now if you look carefully, these 2 circles, one from step 1 and one from step 2, are intersecting at 2 muscles. So the muscles that remain are the left superior rectus and the right superior oblique. So just like that, from 4 muscles, we are now left with 2 possible culprits. Pretty good, right? From 8 muscles to 4, now down to 2. Now comes to the final and the most decisive step. This is the third step. Which head tilt makes the hypertropia worse? This step is also known as the Bielschowsky Head Tilt Test. Before we go further, just a quick note, we already have videos on the logic behind the head tilt and the trochlear nerve anatomy. In those videos, I explain exactly why the Bielschowsky head tilt phenomena occurs and why patient adopts a specific compensatory head posture. If you want a deeper understanding, you can definitely check those out. The link will be in the description box. But for now, let's come back to our step number 3. So how do we interpret the head tilt? Now here's a hack or a key rule that I'll give you. If the hypertropia becomes worse on the head tilt to the same side as the hypertropic eye, it is usually an oblique muscle. If the hypertropia becomes worse on head tilt to the opposite side, it is usually a rectus muscle. So remember, same side oblique and reverse side is rectus. Now most of the time by the end of step 2, you're already left with 1 rectus and 1 oblique. So this rule then helps you easily eliminate one of them. Now this doesn't work in every single case, which is why understanding the logic is also important. But for now, let's apply this to our example. In our case, there is right hypertropia and it becomes worse on the right head tilt. So this is the same side head tilt situation according to the rule that points towards an oblique muscle. But let's understand why. When the head tilts to the right, the eyes also tilt to the right. To maintain a straight ahead gaze, a compensatory mechanism kicks in. The right eye must intort and the left eye must extort. For the right eye, the intorters are the right superior rectus and the right superior oblique. And for the left eye, the extorters are the left inferior rectus and the left inferior oblique. Similarly, on a left head tilt, the left eye will intort and the intorters are the superiors of the left eye, and the right eye will extort and the extorters we know are the inferiors. So this is going to help maintain a straight gaze. So keep that pattern in mind. Now coming back to our example, we know that the hypertropia increases on the right head tilt. So we circle the intorters of the right eye and the extorters of the left eye. Once we do so, we now have 3 sets of circles. Out of all 8 cyclovertical muscles, only one muscle passes through all 3 circles, and that muscle is the right superior oblique. So that's your final answer. And this nicely reinforces the mnemonic. Same side head tilt worsening, usually an oblique. Opposite side head tilt worsening, usually a rectus. So in this case, the culprit is the right superior oblique. So let's summarize the entire framework. Step 1. Identify which eye is higher. Circle the bottom muscles of the higher eye and the top muscles of the lower eye. Step 2. You identify which gaze makes it worse. Circle the muscles acting in the same direction as the worse gaze. Now you are left with 2 muscles. Step 3. Identify which head tilt makes it worse. Same side tilt, usually an oblique. Opposite side tilt, usually a rectus. And that gives you the final culprit muscle. One very important point, and this is crucial. Most exam questions are actually based on the superior oblique palsy. So for that, remember one very useful pattern recognition tool, and that is right, left, right, and left, right, left. When you hear that rhythm, what should come to your mind? Think of the marching rhythm of soldiers, right, left, right, left. So what does that mean? RLR means the right superior oblique palsy, which worsens in the left gaze and worsens on the right head tilt. Similarly, LRL means the left superior oblique palsy worsens in the right gaze and worsens on the left head tilt. If you remember this pattern, it will help you solve a large number of questions instantly, especially the MCQs on superior oblique palsy. A quick pause here. If this framework is already making the Parkes 3-step test clearer for you, make sure you stay till the end. The next cases will really lock this in. And if you find this useful, do consider subscribing to the channel and turning on the notifications. We are building more videos like this to simplify ophthalmology, especially for exams. Let's quickly take another example. A patient comes to you with the following clinical presentation. The right eye is higher, that is right hypertropia, worse on the right gaze and worse on the left head tilt. Let's solve this step by step. First, take your cyclovertical diagram with all these 8 muscles labeled clearly along with their directions of action. So step number 1, we have right hypertropia. So we circle the depressors of the right eye, right superior oblique and the right inferior rectus. And then we also circle the elevators of the left eye, left inferior oblique and the left superior rectus. Now from 8 muscles, we are left with 4. So we are told that the hypertropia is worse in the right gaze. So what do? We circle the muscles that act in the right gaze. After doing this, which 2 muscles remain? The right inferior rectus and the left inferior oblique. So now we are down to 2 muscles. Step number 3. The hypertropia becomes worse on the left head tilt. Now think, is this the same side as hypertropia or the opposite side? It's the opposite side. And the rule is opposite side head tilt worsening. Usually it is the rectus muscle which is the culprit. So in between the inferior oblique and inferior rectus, the correct answer is the right inferior rectus, and that's your culprit. Let's take one more case. Here the patient has left hypertropia, worse in the left gaze and worse on the left head tilt. Again, bring out your cyclovertical diagram. Step number 1, left eye is hypertropic, so we circle the depressors of the left eye, which are the left superior oblique, left inferior rectus. And then we also circle the elevators of the right eye, the right superior rectus and the right inferior oblique. So now we are left with 4 muscles. Step number 2, hypertropia worsens in the left gaze, so we circle the muscles which are acting in the left gaze. So after these steps, the muscles left are the right inferior oblique and the left inferior rectus. Now we move to step number 3. The hypertropia in the left eye worsens with the left head tilt. At this point, ask yourself another important question. Is the hypertropia worsening on the same side as the hypertropia or on the opposite side of the hypertropia? In this case, tilting the head towards the same side as the hypertropia makes it worse. And according to the rule, when hypertropia worsens with head tilt to the same side, the oblique muscle is usually the culprit. Therefore, the muscle involved here is the right inferior oblique. Now, you might ask, what if I don't remember the rule or I'm worried about getting it wrong? No problem at all. You can fall back on what we discussed in the beginning of this video. When you tilt the head to the left eye intorters and the right eye extorters are recruited. The opposite happens with the right head tilt. So when the head is tilted to the left, circle the left eye intorters and the right eye extorters. When you do this and combine it with the previous steps, you will notice that only one muscle is common to all these three circles, and that muscle is the culprit. And therefore, the answer in this scenario is the right inferior oblique. So please remember this approach. Memorize the cyclovertical diagram, draw it when solving the questions, and then draw your three circles. Circle the depressors of the hypertropic eye and the elevators of the hypertropic eye. Circle the muscles acting in the gaze where it worsens, and then circle the intorters and extorters based on the head tilt. Towards the side of the tilt, you are going to circle the intorters, and in the opposite eye, you will circle the extorters. The muscle that lies at the intersection of all three circles, that is your answer. Alternatively, you can also use the shortcut rule. Same side head tilt worsening, usually the oblique, and opposite side head tilt worsening, usually the rectus. Now, an important limitation. This test does not always work. Park 3-step test will fail if there are multiple muscles palsies. Also, in skew deviation, which is a brainstem or a cerebellar problem and not really a muscle palsy, it doesn't work. In restrictive strabismus like thyroid eye disease, trauma, fibrosis, even dissociated vertical deviation, all these conditions can give you false results. So always ensure that you have ruled out restriction and a force duction test has been done whenever required. Only then you should apply the Park's 3-step test. Now, what I'm going to do next is give you 6 practice questions. I'm not going to reveal the answers immediately. Instead, I'll start a 3-minute timer. Try to solve all these 6 questions within that time. Honestly, after watching this video, you should be able to solve all of them in under 5 minutes. After the timer ends, the answers will be revealed. In the comments, tell me how many you got right. Like for example, 6x6, 4x6 or 3x6. And don't get disheartened, just keep practicing. It really does get easy. Alright, time's up. The timer is off and the answers to all 6 questions are now on the screen. Go ahead and check your answers and don't forget to drop your score out of 6 in the comments below. These were the key takeaways from today's video. Thank you so much for watching and be sure to check out the video on the reason behind the compensatory head tilt.